everybody. My name is Shauna, and this is the American English podcast. My goal here is to teach you the English spoken in the United States through common expressions, pronunciation tips, and interesting cultural snippets or stories. I hope to keep this fun, useful, and interesting. Let's do it. I can't believe it. We made it to episode 200. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world, I sincerely hope you feel productive learning English while you're doing other things. I know that a lot of you listen to this podcast while you're commuting to work, while you're cleaning your house, walking around the block, or even working out at the gym. You are multitasking. And if you're not multitasking, congrats also. You're still learning English, and that's great. I feel privileged to fill the free space in your day, and I hope that continues after episode 200. That's right, I'm going to continue after a short break, which we'll get to later on. As you may know, this is the very last episode of Season 4. Season 4 lasted from episode 151 to 200, and it took over 2 years to create. And maybe I should make them shorter. But the point is, a lot has happened. Today, we're going to start by going over some fun statistics about this season. And then we're going to cover what we discussed throughout the past 50 episodes. I'm not going to go over everything, it's just too much, but I'll share some of the fascinating topics that you guys liked in particular about American culture and history, and a lot related to language. At the very end, I will give you an overview of what's coming next. So stay tuned. Let's start with some stats. This season, the podcast reached around 25 million downloads, which for a podcast is a number that's hard to wrap my head around. In other words, it's hard for me to fully comprehend. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. It still gives me goosebumps. Those little bumps on the surface of your skin. It's usually what you get when you get cold or if you're scared. But you can also get goosebumps when you feel moved. So it gives me goosebumps that there's so many people listening. Now, what really makes me smile isn't the number, but how it's been used. Recently, and throughout this season, I've gotten messages from numerous ESL teachers who play these episodes in their classrooms, and from students, some kids who are tuning in from around the world. And that picture of my voice playing in a classroom is just crazy. It's so cool how technology can reach so many different places, and that makes me just very happy. Nearly half of you, about 48%, tune in on Apple Podcasts, while 37% prefer Spotify. After that comes Castbox and a variety of other platforms. As for where in the world you're listening from, the United States makes up the largest group. So there are a lot of non-native English speakers in the US who are listening, 18%. Brazil follows with 9%, Japan with 7%, South Korea, and then China. But what amazes me is how global English is as a foreign language. The last time I checked, episodes had been played in nearly every country. So pretty cool. And that brings me to your favorite episodes. And we'll do this by category. As you probably know by now, this podcast has about 6 or 7 categories. An episode in a category follows a specific format. And this season, I introduced a new one called Irregular Verb Stories. In them, I tell a cultural story, and within it, I weave in 10 irregular verbs. So a verb that is irregular does not have an ed ending in the simple past tense. Heard, ate, and spoke. Yeah. So you hear these words in context, repeat them in a pronunciation exercise, test yourself with a quiz, and then listen to the story again. So it's a lot of repetition, but that's for a reason. Irregular verbs require a certain degree of memorization, and that repetition helps them stick. So apparently that was a good format because the top 3 performing episodes this season were in that category. Number 1, which was the most popular episode by far, was episode 164.2, Irregular Verbs with the Titanic. So why was this so popular? I don't know. I'm guessing you guys saw the movie The Titanic with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. Maybe. And then you wanted to hear the story? Yeah, listen to this. The Titanic had been sailing smoothly through the icy, calm water when suddenly it hit a colossal iceberg. Colossal means massive or huge. As icy seawater poured into the lower levels of the ship, a wave of panic spread among the passengers. Over the next few hours, many came to the realization that the ship would sink. So panic spread, people jumped into the icy water, swam in place, and many froze to death as the ship sank. Right, so there's 4 irregular verbs right there. Spread, swam, froze, and sank. To hear the whole episode, check out episode 164.2. The second most popular was 168.2, Irregular Verbs with the Statue of Liberty. And that was a pretty fun episode. I learned quite a bit. If I remember correctly, the Statue of Liberty, or Lady Liberty, used to be the color of a penny. So the penny is this copper color, but with the ocean air and time, it turned green. She turned green. Listen to this. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France to the United States in 1886. And it commemorates not only the centennial of American independence, but the friendship between the two nations. It took about 9 years to make. The exterior was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, and the statue's internal structure was engineered by Gustave Eiffel, who later designed the Eiffel Tower. The Statue of Liberty is now informally known as Lady Liberty. Did you know that? That brings me to number 3, 166.2, Irregular Verbs with McDonald's. In past seasons, business success stories were pretty popular. Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Ben & Jerry's. Gosh, I'm doing a lot of unhealthy stuff. Maybe I'll change that next season. So this season, I added McDonald's to the mix. Listen to this. The story of McDonald's is a tale of American entrepreneurship and the evolution of fast food culture. It all began in 1940 when brothers Richard and Maurice McDonald opened a barbecue restaurant in San Bernardino, California. Initially, their restaurant was called McDonald's Barbecue, and the service wasn't very fast. So what happened next? Well, check out episode 166.2. You'll learn 10 irregular verbs if you do. So in this season, we also did irregular verb episodes on Amelia Earhart, the Ferris wheel, created by George Ferris, the story of Diana Nyad and her swim from Cuba to Florida. Still can't believe that. That's just a crazy story. The invention of the microwave, which was sort of funny, exploding eggs. The survival story of Hugh Glass, which is also very impressive. It, of course, inspired the Hollywood film The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio. Next up, let's talk about 5-minute English episodes. In 5-minute English episodes, I tell a story in which I use all of the terms and phrases I can think of about a specific topic. Words and phrases that you might need if you're chatting about that topic. So it's real vocab, expressions, collocations. It's very vocab rich. And that's why I call them fluency one topic at a time. If you study a specific episode, I'm fairly confident you will be able to have a conversation with a native speaker about that specific topic. This season, we went over home renovation, episode 159, the post office and mail, 163, bad driving, 167, swimming, 174, yard work, 181, cats and dogs, 185, dentist and the orthodontist, 188, and the July feature was a day at the beach. Can you guess which one was the most popular? Drumroll, please. 167, 5-minute English, bad driving. And this makes me laugh. I remember creating this episode and trying to imagine the worst possible driver on the road and everything that person could do wrong. And then I described it through a story. Now, it's sort of silly, but apparently useful. So if you are in your car and you want to complain about a bad driver in English, or maybe yell in your car about what somebody is doing wrong on the road, listen to episode 167. Although it's rush hour and you're stuck in traffic, the man in the silver truck seems to think he can get ahead of everyone. Every time he changes lanes, which is every few seconds, he doesn't turn on his blinker. And that drives you nuts. You can't help but think, who do you think you are? Turn on your blinker, dude. Once again, these are fairly short. They're practical. You can repeat some of the phrases. And if you're busy, it's all the words you need at once. So go ahead and check out episode 167. And by the way, on the website, americanenglishpodcast.com, you can find all of the episodes within each category, grouped together. The next category we had was Chats with Shauna. I'm Shauna. Now, these are more casual than other episodes. And while I still explain difficult words and phrases, I typically share more about my family and express more opinions in them. So this season, we had episode 153, My Christmas Memories, plus 10 oxymorons, right? Things that are contradictory by nature. For example, jumbo shrimp Jumbo means large. Shrimp can mean small. So if you call someone a shrimp, it could mean that they're a short or small person, usually short in stature. But jumbo shrimp is what we call shrimp, the crustacean, the seafood that you eat when they're the big version of that food. So jumbo shrimp is an oxymoron. Number 165 was culture shock in the United States. 173, 10 must-know Southern foods. 183, what makes you happy? I'll go first. 187, 5 essential speaking tips for language learners. And 193, sharks, swamps, and sweet tea, which we talked about our trip to South Carolina. And the winner for that category was 165, culture shock in the United States. That episode was recorded from Brazil last year. My daughters and I and Lucas spent 2 months in Brazil during the summertime. But for Brazil, they were still in school. And so I enrolled my 2 daughters in a Brazilian school. So it was a full immersion program, sort of. I just asked to enroll them and they did. And it was a really cool experience. But it was also really intense because most of the time I was on my own. I needed to rent a car and I needed to drive everywhere because Lucas was working. And so there were a lot of moments when I was focused on US culture and comparing myself to the new environment I was in. And that meant thinking about food, thinking about driving, how people put themselves together in terms of fixing their hair and their makeup. I mentioned flags in that episode and patriotism. And also some silly stuff like bathroom stalls. Take a listen. When you go into public restrooms, anywhere, at least if there's multiple toilets, there are bathroom stalls. Each stall is a little room with 3 walls and a door. Inside is a toilet, toilet paper, etc. Public restrooms might have many bathroom stalls. They're supposed to give privacy to whoever is using the toilet. The thing is, in the United States, they're not very private. Most stalls have a big empty space on the bottom, so from the floor, maybe up about 1.5 feet, so that people can see the bottom of your legs, so maybe your ankles and your feet. And there's also a crack down both sides vertically, so that if you look, or you try to look inside, you can actually make eye contact with the person who is sitting on the toilet. I guess you guys like hearing about weird, random cultural differences. So I'll consider doing another one of those in an upcoming episode. Next, we had the expression episodes. Each expression episode starts with a joke. We go through the origin of the expression. You hear some examples, 3 examples to be precise. And then we go through a pronunciation exercise. The goal is for you to feel confident enough to use the expression in everyday life. So, what were the expressions for this season? In episode 151, we had to steer clear. 154, my cup of tea. 157, to get the ball rolling. 160, give me some sugar. 164, to hit rock bottom. Number 166, to take it with a grain of salt. 168, to spread one's wings. 169, to vanish into thin air. 171, what goes around comes around. 178, go big or go home. 180, to keep one's head above water. 184, 3 sheets to the wind. 190, where there's smoke, there's fire. 192, to have a hissy fit. And 198, against all odds. So what was the most popular expression episode of this season? Interesting enough, 164, to hit rock bottom. Can you think of something that hit rock bottom literally? Titanic. So I always try to pair the cultural topic of that episode with the expression. It helps me remember them. Like automatically I can go, oh yeah, to steer clear, that was about moose. My cup of tea was about the Boston Tea Party. To have a hissy fit was about snakes. Where there's smoke, there's fire was about the Great Smoky Mountains. 3 sheets to the wind means drunk. That was about wine regions. What goes around comes around was about the Ferris wheel. Go big or go home was about one of the richest Americans in the U.S., the Vanderbilts, and the Biltmore Estate, the largest house in the United States. There were so many. That brings us to culture and history. Yes, the second part of expression episodes. In them, I cover topics like business success stories, interesting people and places, food, animals, holidays, and so much more. And the reason is culture and language go hand in hand. When you understand culture, it's easier to have conversations with people about culture. So I think these are great conversation starters. So in season 4, we covered a variety of topics. The most listened to episode in this category was The Trail of Tears, which is a very sad but true story about the Native American removal in the United States on behalf of the U.S. government. And it's when a lot of Native Americans, so Cherokee and a lot of tribes in the South, particularly Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina, when they were forced to move, when they were forced to relocate to Oklahoma and central states. And along the way, a lot of them died. It's part of a very large story about Native American and U.S. government relations. And it's sad, but it's true and important to tell. The second most popular was actually a little bit more upbeat, and it was about the magical world of Harry Houdini. As the lights dim and the heavy red velvet curtains part down the middle, the audience becomes so silent you can hear a pin drop. Then onto the stage comes Houdini himself, his eyes shining with determination. And tonight, you'll see him defy the impossible. Of course, he was a celebrity in magic. He was a magician who really risked his life on a regular basis to impress very large audiences. And that episode was just so fun, watching all those old videos of him putting chains around his wrists and arms and locking himself in boxes and then being thrown into lakes and rivers off of bridges. So that was a crazy, fun episode for me, and I'm so glad that you liked learning about Houdini also. Then we had episode 196.2, a recent one about the Burmese pythons in Florida, the invasive species that are taking over the Everglades, and how Florida is fighting back. We learned about the bison and the connection with Native Americans and how we almost eliminated them, and then how they're now back. We also learned about the Great Smoky Mountains and Appalachian culture, moonshine, NASCAR routes, bluegrass music, and folklore from the mountains. So once again, the Appalachian mountain range runs all the way from Georgia up towards Canada. And there's so much rich culture within Appalachia. And a lot of people in the United States say Appalachia and Appalachian, but once again, in the Appalachian region, people say Appalachia and Appalachian. So important to remember that. All in all, the episodes were pretty diverse, which brings me to the category Discover a New State. So in Discover a New State episodes, I find someone from around the United States, usually an ESL teacher, and they talk about their home state, what it was like growing up there, what are some things you can do as a tourist, what are some things you should eat, what you should know, and yeah, there are some fun stories in there. In episode 162, we talked to Jackie from the popular YouTube channel Ask Jackie. She spoke about Chicago and Illinois. Then in episode 182, we had Tanya Jordaning, who grew up in Nebraska, which is in the central part of the United States. We heard a lot about her childhood growing up in a sort of farming community. Also, we talked about Kool-Aid, if I remember correctly. Then we had Bethany on to talk about Iowa in episode 194. Bethany speaks very clearly, which I loved. We talked about her life there. So check out episodes 162, 182, and 194 if you want to hear locals from Illinois, Nebraska, and Iowa. So on the personal side, these 2 years were full of activity. We moved from Los Angeles to North Carolina, settled in the Appalachians. We survived our first hurricane, Hurricane Helene, made new friends, and even remodeled our house. Milo, our sweet dog, joined the family. And this year, I've officially become obsessed with baking sourdough and baking in general. So that's my new hobby. My daughters are getting bigger and growing braver every year. Lucas is still deep in his music obsession. Recently, he's been playing a combination of bluegrass and bossa nova with our neighbor. They sit out on the back porch and jam out. That's something I thought I'd never say. And what a weird random mix of music, right? But I guess that's what you get if you have a bluegrass musician and a Brazilian in the same room. Anyway, through all of it, I've enjoyed sharing pieces of our story with you. This season, I was able to meet 2 listeners who came to Asheville, North Carolina. Big shout out to Torsten from Germany and Sophie from France. You guys are great. After my episode about mail, I also received a lot of nice postcards from you guys. They're now hanging on the wall in my office from over 30 different countries, and it makes me so happy to look up at the top of my wall and see them hanging there. They're on a nice string and dangle, and so I can look at the back or the front. Thank you so much to everyone who sent a postcard. Thank you to everyone who's bought me coffee on the Buy Me a Coffee site. Thank you to all of the premium members, especially the very active learners, Shaika from Kuwait, Eliza from Italy, Takako from Japan. Keep it up. Last but not least, if you do like this podcast, please leave a review. Leaving a review on your favorite podcast app helps this podcast gain more visibility and directly supports my work. It only takes a few minutes of your time, but it means the world to me. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you once again. So what's coming in future episodes? I can obviously see that you guys like learning about culture and language. So we'll continue with the 6 episode categories I mentioned, but we'll also be adding a bit more grammar. Don't worry, my goal is to make it fun. We'll also be doing more episodes with prepositions. I was happy to see that you guys liked the episodes with Lucas. I did one in episode 197 and 199, and we just spoke casually, and I quizzed him about prepositions along the way. I'll also be focusing on more wild stories, including more inventions, more businesses that were created. Many of you requested very specific episodes, specifically about the U.S. government, healthcare, our welfare system, and the justice system. I will keep those in mind. A few of you have requested that I list episodes based on level. Most all of the episodes are between B1 and C1 if you're using the common European framework reference, the CFR scale. In layman's terms, that's lower intermediate to high intermediate and advanced. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you think there would be value in labeling the episodes? Many of you have also asked about taking classes with me. I will let you know. Big things are coming for me and for you if you want to keep learning with this podcast. This next month, I will be dedicating a lot more time to the creation of these big new projects. I will be taking a short break, so stay tuned. Updates are coming soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the American English Podcast. Remember, it's my goal here to not only help you improve your listening comprehension, but to show you how to speak like someone from the States. If you want to receive the full transcript for this episode, or you just want to support this podcast, make sure to sign up to premium content on americanenglishpodcast.com. Thanks and hope to see you soon.